Hi, hello everyone. I was talking on the backstage that it's so weird for me to see this many people without masks right now. Because in the pandemic I was so used to see everyone, for example, on the university, but with masks. But hello, my name is Agnieszka, and as I was pronounced, I'm lead senior UX researcher in 10 Clouds. It's quite a long name, but simply I'm just leading the team of UX experts in my company, and on the daily basics I'm just taking care of the UX research, product discovery, and service design. But what's quite important for you also that I have experience of working with marketing and business specialists, especially when we are talking about strategy. So everything I will be talking today is my experience also from this field. So I hope it will be helpful. Don't worry that I'm working with the research. It will be also helpful for any other field in this area. And also on the daily basics, if you won't be tired of me speaking, I'm running a podcast, Proste Rozmowy. Unfortunately, it's only in Polish, but we are talking about the taboos in the society. So I think it can be quite useful also to fulfill my presentation today. And today I want to talk with you about the values. And I know this title, it sounds quite catchy, like, will the values save our world? But it's all about the new perspective we can have for the values. Because when we are thinking about the values, all of us are working, I hope, with values. And it quite sounds basics, right? I'll be talking about the values and I'll be talking about the promises. And we hear this word values all over again. We have the values in the strategy, we have the values in the communication, we have values everywhere, but do we use these values, right? Are we using these values only on the high level? Or maybe we are using these values as a tool that are helping us to achieve something, to design the service, to design the communication, to prepare something for the user. And I won't be talking about the value proposition canvas, not today. I really love this exercise, but it's not about the topic of today's talk. I'll be talking about another approach to the values in, let's be honest, in the new reality. Of course, it can apply also to the old reality before the COVID. But it's all about how we can change this approach, how we can look for the values and the promises, because it will be about both of them, just to be sure that we are looking for everything what we can give to the user. And it's really important that another doesn't mean that this is the only proper one. The values, it's really wide topic, and I will be only talking about this values promises connection. It can apply to service design, product design, it can apply to the strategy, marketing, copy creation, it can apply to the whole scope of creation something for the user, because every time when we are proposing something, when we are just adding something to the service, when we have the solution for the user, we always have some values and we always have some promises. But going back, and I like to take a step back and start with the basics, because I know that every one of us know what's the promise and know what's the value. But just for the talk, to be sure that we are on one page, when we have this promise, it's just simply about telling someone that we certainly will do something, or maybe not. And when we are talking about the value, this is something important, something that have worth, something that's useful for someone in some specific situation. And when we will have something more holistic approach, it's really simple to connect both of them. We have the promise. If we will fulfill the promise, we can give the value to the user. Simple, right? For example, this conference. When you are buying the ticket for the speech, for this conference, somewhere in the background there was a promise that you will, for example, gain the knowledge for this. So you were expecting to gain the knowledge. The conference was telling you that you will gain the knowledge. It was the promise. And by the fulfillment, so it's the solution, looking for experts, preparing everything, preparing the presentation, and also giving the talk right now to you. We are just giving you, fulfilling this promise, and we are giving you the value. The value is the knowledge at the end. Really simple. But on the daily basics, we are not thinking in our work about promises. We are thinking about the needs, and we are thinking about the problems. And it's okay, because the promise is something related to needs and problems. But we are resolving problems and needs to give a value, so we are only focusing on the small scope of the service, small scope of something that we are delivering to the client, to the user. Because the promise is more holistic perspective, promise is more holistic, more bigger, like bigger section of something, of the service. Resolving one need or resolving one problem is only a detail in this promise. So, okay, we have all this basic stuff. We know the connection between the promise and between the values, but we all know that we are also talking today about new perspectives in the COVID situation and in the new reality. So what does this have to do with this whole COVID situation? Like promises, values, it was existing before all of this. So my story in the COVID, I was a really lucky one. Like I was working in Poland all the time, and me and my designers and researcher, my whole team, we quite quickly come back to the reality. Like we, of course, like the first few months, we were working remotely, doing everything remotely from home, because it was quite normal to be in home just to be sure that everything will be fine. But then we go back to workshops, there was vaccines, we go back to old methods like interviews, old project also from the service design. And there was a time in the middle of the pandemic when I was working on redesign of the service for one of my clients. It was a service related to the training sessions. So the client were offering specific individual training for some clients, for his clients. And I was working on this project with Laura Piwowarska, and even if we were quite lucky to go back to the reality, old reality, our users not. Like, no matter what we were doing, no matter what methods we are using, we find out that nothing is working here. Like, the users were uncertain, there was uncertainty from their side. They have new needs, they have fear, they have lots of emotions. So every method, like every interview, so looking for the insights, looking for the problems, anything that we need to design a new service here, design a new communication, design a new process. Nothing was working here because there was so many of new emotions and nobody know what's the truth and what's not. And to be honest, we were quite stressed because like this project has, I don't know, 12 weeks, something like this. And we find out after the first 8 that we have nothing. Like we have a lot of information from the users, but we are not able to organize them in any proper way to design something. And then we decided, okay, like maybe we'll try to organize everything to find some patterns in every information we have. And we find something quite interesting. It's also related to brand DNA. So I won't be talking about brand DNA today, but we find out that this value, this company, so the company or client, they have some values and they are giving these values to the users, but they don't know the needs of the users. So they have something inside the company, inside the service. They are giving this to people, but they don't know what they are resolving by them. And when we were trying to organize all these values, depends from the service, we found out that there are 2 categories. Like, this is the best visualization, that the triangle, that we have the service, then we have the values that client is seeing, and the client wants this directly. So please remember, we are talking about the service of individual training sessions. So the client, for example, wants to have an individual approach from the company and an expert knowledge because they want to buy something that is tailored to his needs. But also, there's the second package of the values that client maybe don't see. Maybe the client don't think that he needs to have this from the company. But we, as a company, we are need this to offer above. Because if we want to create an individual offer with the expert knowledge, and it needs to be individual, maybe we need to have some more holistic approach. It's also a value. Maybe we need to have holistic knowledge from other fields, because only in this case we are able to see the whole package of needs of the user, not only from the small field, the small section. We'll be creating the proposal, for example, for the training session. Maybe we need to know something more, but the client don't need this, like the user, the client of our clients. The user don't need this, don't looking for this, but we need this to offer something, fulfill this promise. And after this, we decided, okay, like we are running out of time, but we are working in Lean, we are working in Agile, so we like to take a risk. And what if we will change the focus? Like, it was late in the project, but what if we will change the focus from the features, from the solutions? Of course, we have some problems, we have some needs, but instead of focusing to look for the features and solution right now, because it was the time to look for them, we will take a step back and focus on the promises, on the values, on something that we were knowing from the beginning, that we need to know something about the values. But it's quite normal that when we are servicing, when we are designing the service, we are focusing on the feature solution, because at the end we need to have the solution for the client. And we decided to do this. Like, we take a different approach. Instead of having promises and having values and going from the promises to the values, so looking for the solution to fulfill the promise, we decide, what if, with having the promises, because we have needs and we have the problems, and having something about the values, we will be looking for a new values that will help us to support the fulfillment of the promise. So, of course, the values still will be at the end, but in this approach, they will be helping us to find a new solution. And we decided to do this. And of course, it's quite hard to talk about something on a high level without something that you can imagine. So imagine that we are designing some service. And it's not the same service I was designing for the client, but in this case, we are designing the service of individual dog training service. And it's not only about the design. It's important for you. I'm the UX researcher and service designer. It's not only about an application or something like this. It's all about the processes, communication. We are designing everything. For example, we have this service inside, like it's in-house project. We have some service we want to redesign, maybe design a new path in this service. So when we have this individual dog training service, probably we have more, but in this case, we have three main promises. Like, the first promise is about tailoring the service to the customer's dog. Of course, it's also about tailoring to the customer, but in this case, it's about the dog too, because you can imagine that, I don't know, we have Chihuahua and we have Doberman. Like, there are two different races of dogs, so we need to tailor the training to them. Or maybe there will be, like, I don't know, the Doberman will be really lovely dog and Chihuahua will be the aggressive one. We also need to remember to tailor to the behavior of the dog. So there is a promise from us that we will be tailoring the service to the dog that customer have. And the customer is expecting this promise, and that we will fulfill this. The second promise is about understanding. So the promise that the client will understand what they are buying. Like, this is the most common promise when we are offering something to someone, that the client will understand, because everyone wants to know about what they are looking for what they will be paying. So the client needs to understand what they are buying. And the last one is about the effect. So the promise that they will come out from the training with the effect, because there is no need to go on the training if everything will be the same after the training. If we have aggressive dog, we want to have, I don't know, calmer dog at the end. we need to have some effect, and the client is expecting this effect, and we need to promise by the service that the effect will be different at the end. And what we'll be doing right now, I'll be showing you how we can organize all this information just to see all the connections between the values and promises, to use the values as a tool. And imagine like when we have this general promise, the first one, so the promise of tailoring the service to the customer doc. Quite simple. But if we'll go deeper, in this promise we have some needs, like we have some details. So what are the needs of the client here? We can ask ourselves. So maybe it will be that the customer wants to be understood, like they want to be sure that we'll be understanding what they have in the house, like what's the behavior of the dog, what they need here. And the customer also wants to us to respond to all their needs. So it's not only about taking the dog for the training, it's all about maybe other smaller needs they have here. So they want to have individual approach, they want to be understood and want to have this opportunity to respond to all their needs. And if we will go deeper, because as I said, we have right now the service, we are redesigning this, we can ask ourselves, okay, what the values we have right now in the company, in the whole service, in everything that is connecting with the user, is the touch point with the user in this case. What resources do we have right now to fulfill this promise? And maybe we will find out that, okay, like we have the openness, we have the active listening. Maybe we have some specialist knowledge, expert knowledge here. Like the openness and active listening, it's for sure helping us to understand the client, to fulfill this promise in this part. Like specialist knowledge, it's helping us to respond to the needs, because if we have specialist knowledge about how to train the dog, we are able to tailor the service to the specific dog. But we can go deeper and ask ourselves what we need to add to have a better quality of the service. What do we need to add here? Maybe it will be something about more holistic experience with different types of the dogs. Maybe it will be something about the individual approach. As you can see, like when we have openness, active listening, knowledge, maybe we'll be open, but we won't be able to have this individual approach to the client. Maybe it will be something about the good cooperation skills with the dog and also with the client, because we can imagine that in some really specific hard situation, even if the dog will be aggressive, the client will love his dog, and it will be quite hard, for example, to tell everything or to agree on some actions from our side or the process in the training. So maybe it also will be needed to be able to tailor the service to the customer dog. But look for the second example, like the second promise. So the second promise that the client will understand what they are buying. We can do the same thing. So we are going to the details, and maybe there will be some needs that they want to know what will be the result of the process, of the service they are buying. Maybe it's all about the knowledge about the process step by step, because when we are buying something, we want to know what will be happening with our dog in every stage. But when we can go deeper, maybe we will find out that we don't have anything here. And it was the case from my client. Like, we have everything in most of the promises. We had a lot of promises in this training services. We have a lot of values inside, because as you see, we have even a triangle of the values, and it was quite huge. But we find out that in one promise, there's nothing right now in the company. And it was the point that there was some problems with the clients and with the communication, and they were trying a different solution. Also, we were trying at different solutions, but because we were not thinking about the values at the time, it was hard for us to find the deep cause of the problem. And in the next step, like in this example, we just ask ourselves, okay, so what we need to add here to fulfill this lack, to fulfill this big hole of nothing right now in the company. Maybe it will be something about transparency, because when somebody wants to buy something, they want to see the transparent process. Maybe it will be about the education, showing how it will be looking. Maybe it will be about the trust, like showing the trust in the communication, showing the trust in the relation with the client when we are talking with them. Maybe it will be the trust that we are showing in the solution, because, for example, we are sharing opinions of other people. And that's it. Like, it's really simple that we have promise, then we are going deeper to see the needs, and then we are asking ourselves, okay, what values we have right now, and what values we need to add if we have some lacks, or maybe we want to add quality here. And like, okay, it's looking nice. In some cases, when we have really huge product, maybe it will be even a great, colorful, big Excel. But what do we have from this as a people who are working in creation? So first of all, it's something I said before, like, it's all about clear, holistic indication where we have serious lacks. Like this really simple organization, the simple connection of promises and the needs of promises with the values we have right now, or we need to add. It's helping us to find the deep cause of the problems when we are in the situation that it's hard to find the deep cause of the problem. Because sometimes the problem will be small, it will be quite easy, like in old situation, in old perspective before the COVID, it was quite easy sometimes to talk with the users because they were using the services for years. But when we have something new right now, when we have different communication, different fears, uncertainty on every field we're working on, it's quite hard to sometimes find what's the real deep cause of the problem. And this organization helps us to understand, okay, there is the lack. And in the next step, it helped us to show what we should add. Like, it was really simple, and we were able to, in a really clear way, show not only us as UX researchers and service designers, but also to all stakeholders, show, okay, like you're saying, there is a hole. So we need to fill this hole with something. We are not only showing you where's the hole, we're also showing you how we can fulfill this to be able to fulfill the promise you are giving to the customer. And the third one, this is my favorite one. And to be honest, I love this because the first two was about organization and showing something. The third one is about the checklist. And it's all about the service assumptions. I call this service assumptions. But it's not only about the service. It's also about all the assumptions we need to create something. Also, maybe it will be like design assumptions, maybe it will be copy assumptions, maybe it will be about marketing assumptions. It's just about a simple checklist. Because as you can see, when we have the general promise, and the promise in most of cases is a part of the service at some point. So we have, for example, this promise of tailoring the service to the customer doc. Maybe it will be in the first phase of the service when the client is deciding to buy something. When we are training the doc, there will be a different promise that the client is expecting. At the end, there will be a different promise. So we are able to really simple, just make a checklist, like take all the values we have right now, because when we are adding something, it's quite easy to forget that we have something right now and, for example, lose the values we have in the company in the moment. And we can take the values that we need to add and make something like this. Like, it's really simple. It's only taking this all statement, all words, and making a checklist just to be sure that when we are designing something, when we are in the creation process, we can just go and mark, and see, okay, like, for example, I'm designing the communication with the client. Is there something that's related to openness? Is there something related to active listening? Is there a specialist expert knowledge? Maybe there is some about holistic experience. If not, how can I add this here? Maybe it will be about some specific solution, like, I don't know, sending a message, or maybe it will be a specific solution in the application when we are talking about the product design. Maybe it will be about different actions, like, I don't know, another training for our not customers, but for our employees, because they need to gain the knowledge to have more holistic experience. We can check the individual approach, good cooperation skill. Like this checklist can be even really, really long, but we have something to check. And in the case of the service and product design, because I was talking most of the cases about this, because it was about the redesigning service, it's about checking if we are giving the values in the solution. So on every stage, we are able to just check, okay, like in this case, we have this promise. Are we giving these values? Or maybe we need to add something more in the process. In the case of the strategy, it's really simple to check if we have the strategy related to these values. Because in most of the cases, we are using the values as something that is on a really high level, in the background, sometimes in the communication. We are forgetting about them on daily basis. With simple checklists, it's easier to check if all our actions related to strategy are also related to values. And in the case of the marketing and any other field related to this, like it's really easy to check if we are giving values in the communication. Like, for example, with the client, when we are talking, we are redesigning the service, but we give this checklist to the whole team of the client. And I know that still marketing is using it. Like, every time when they're creating something, creating materials, creating strategy for social media, they just have this checklist and they are looking, okay, if we are giving here the trust, if we are giving here openness, if we are giving here something that's related to the education in the process, they are able to have something simple, some tool related to the values, just to be sure that we are fulfilling the promise. And how it ends, when we are talking about the project I was working on, like we started with chaos in information and understanding of the causes of the problem. As I said, we were far after the middle of the project. Like it was 8 weeks. We had only 4 weeks to end the project, and because we take the risk, we were able to, first of all, organize all the information in a clear way, as I said, for all recipients. It was easy to tell and show the stakeholders that it's not only about, okay, we have the values and they will be, okay, like values, communication, yay, what we have from this. No, like it was really easy to show, like, we have the values and you don't have the values here. This is your problem. This is the problem why you have so bad communication with the client, because you are promising something and you are not able to fulfill this. For us, it was really easy, as I said, to find the causes of the problems. And it was really easy to make something like this checklist, to be honest, like the guideline for the whole delivery team. Because, as I said, it's not only about the UX research, it's not only about the service design, it's about the whole delivery team, every person who was working to deliver something to the client. And also, it can be also the guideline for the internal work of the client team in the next stages. Like, I'm not working on this project anymore. It was more than a year ago, but they are still working on this. They are still updating the values because they have a really simple tool just to be sure that everything is on the place. And to sum up everything, like, I want you to remember about 3 main things about the values. That first of all, focusing on the values can allow us to find hidden causes of the problems. It's not only about the communication, it can be a tool for us to find something. There is no need to use values only as the end result of something. It can help us as a tool to find the problems. Also, it can be a good checklist. Like, it's a great checklist to make sure that at every stage, we are delivering everything what we promise. It can be a design checklist, it can be a communication checklist. The name here doesn't matter. It's all about making sure that we are delivering what we should deliver. And as I said, a few times, it's not only about the communication. And this is the core of what I was talking about. Like, I want you to remember that we should treat the values as something that can help us. Values can be a tool. It can be helpful at every stage of the creation, not only in the communication. There is no need to be only on the high level in our mind that we have some values in the strategy, or maybe we should show them on, I don't know, like in some visual style. It can be helpful to design, to be honest, everything. And from my side, it's everything. I'm quite surprised that I end on the time, to be honest, but maybe you have any questions about this. I know that it was quite high level. It was all about the values. There was only one example, but maybe you have some questions, and I will be really happy to answer them.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Do we have any? Yeah, of course we have questions. Okay, the first one is at the very top.
Good morning. I very much enjoyed this presentation. Thank you so much. Very well done. My name is Małgorzata. I'm working as a content manager at Microsoft. And I'm very much interested in this relationship between content and design and this user experience. And if you would like to elaborate more about this improvement that you mentioned in the design thinking and instructions for the design team, that would be very awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope that you will answer this question correctly, because in most of the time when I was starting to talk, I'm talk a lot, so I will try. When we are talking about this connection between the communication and design, in this case, when we are talking about the values, I find out in my whole experience that the values are only something that we need to just show in the communication that we have, for example, some specific words. And in this case, when we are thinking about the design and the communication, it helps us, on one hand, for the design, just to be sure that we have, as I said, just to be sure that we have all the solutions. And by having the solutions in the service, when we are talking about a specific client, I'm still using this in different projects, so I'm in the mind if I should think about the first client or maybe any project. It's helping us to, on one hand, design something. So when we have designers, they have a checklist of all the values. They're going like step by step, but when they are thinking about specific solutions in kind of the design. So for example, in the application, how something should behave here, what we need to have from the UX perspective. And then, because we are quite close cooperating with the whole marketing team, and also we are cooperating with UX writers and copywriters on anything, it's really easy to share this knowledge about the values that, okay, like we have the values in the solution by, for example, adding something related to automation, like automatization. Yes, automatization here. But we need also to have a proper copy with these values. When we are thinking about our cooperation with the values and with the marketing, it's much more easier because it's only about like just being sure that the whole strategy is related to the values that we want to show in this specific case. Like when we have the specific target group and we have the promise for them about tailoring something, we just need to be sure that all the materials, all the communication on the social media, all the information that we are giving them, even in the emails, are related to the values that we have related to fulfill this promise. I don't know if I answered this question, but I hope.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting, but I'm just a simple writer. So you were talking about the holistic approach to designing services and products, but can we apply this just not only the whole communication, but just the documentation?
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible?
Like to be honest, this is the method when we find out this way of organization information, we are applying this everywhere. Like even if we are not talking about designing the services, even when we are talking about organization of some insights, we always right now using the promises instead of only needs and the problems, because it helps us in even small tasks like creation. Right now we are creating some guidelines for the students. And it helps us to be sure that we are not only focusing on a small detail, small problem, but we are seeing the whole perspective. And it's really helpful because when you are, for example, using the customer journey map, we have some emotions and other different stages here and elements. We are using something like customer journey map just to be sure that when we have some problems, just to be sure that we see the connection between the problems, because sometimes the cause of the problems is before the problems appears. And the same is with the promises, like this more holistic vision, like even if it will be only connection of 2-3 needs or problems, it helps us to understand this from a bigger perspective. And even if we are using this for, as I said, small task, guideline for the students, even right now we are using this for the copy, for marketing, for social media post. So it's not a big deal, it's not the big service. It's just helping us to be sure that we are just checking if we have everything. So yes.
Hello, I'm Tomek. I'm representing Atlassian, and I'm representing also my super cool design team, which is probably somewhere here. Before I ask my question, I'd like to refer to one comment from yesterday. There was a comment about Atlassian not being responsive to the customer feedback. We need to talk. And we were compared to the Microsoft. So I'd like to clarify 2 misconceptions here. First of all, we are 10 times smaller than Microsoft. We have like 10,000 people at the company at the moment. Microsoft, and my colleague can correct me if I'm wrong, 180,000 people. And there was a comment about Atlassian not being responsive. And I will answer that comment this way. So first of all, we have huge backlog of topics because we have 200,000 customers and 18 million active users. So yes, we do have a huge backlog of needs, of questions. Do we have problems? Yes. Do we have challenges? Yes. But we have an awesome team who is working really hard to solve all of them. So going back to my question, I'm very interested how you deal with a huge variety of customers and how you address values and how you make promises to like a huge variety of customers.
Okay, so maybe starting from the beginning, it's all about the organization. And in this case, when we were talking, I should explain this more. Like when we are talking about the values, it's quite normal that we are not able to have, in most of the cases, the same values for every customer. Like when we have different target groups, they have different needs and they have different problems. And the whole thing about the promises, as I said, it's about the promise is in the detail. It's all about the needs and the problems. It's more holistic perspective. It's like the section of different needs and the problems that is creating a promise. So in the case when we have different clients, when we have different target groups, it's quite normal that we need to rethink if we have different promises for them. So probably it won't be only one Excel, one table for the whole service. Maybe it will be 2, 3 more. It all depends from the problems and needs we have inside. And what we were doing at the beginning, we were not starting with the promises. We were starting of grouping all the needs to find the promises. Because the promises is not only something that we can find from the user. Promises is also something that we can find after connecting some needs and the problems. So as I said, needs, problems are the details of the promises. And what helped us is that we are just working on sticky notes. Like, I'm old-fashioned. Sometimes I'm working on the Miro. So in this case, we were just collecting all the problems, sticky notes, like in affinity mapping, making the promises, and then when we are looking for the values, we are using just different resources from more scientific page, like sociology and any other fields. We also were working, in this case, with people with knowledge from this field to find out what values we have right now. It was quite easy to connect them, but what values we need to add just to be sure that this is not only our perspective. As I said, it's all about a really big project because this redesign was really big. But as I understand, you also have the same situation, like when we have different needs, different problems. It's all about, at first, organization. It's all about connecting them and finding how many promises we have. And then, only then, when we have the promises and we have problems and needs, then going to the values. First of all, what we have inside is all about the audit of the solution, the audit of the whole organization, because not only the solution is giving the value to the user, like we all working on something, we are all giving the solution, like it will be the application, but maybe it also will be the call center. If we have the call center, it will be any person who's connecting with the client. Everyone is the part, everyone is the touch point for the user, so we need to check what values we have here and then decide, okay, which values we need to add. I don't know if I answer, but I see that we are running also.
Yeah, we have time for one more question, and there is already a person with the mic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. First of all, thanks a lot for such insightful presentation. And my question is about, so for instance, you made a research that your customer lacks some values, right? So there is like a value gap. How do you usually persuade your customers that they need to get this value? Because as far as I understood, like values, they directly refer to our promises, right? As a result, that relates to the services that we provide. Thank you.
Yes. In this case, to be honest, it was quite hard because it was the design of the service for the client who wasn't believing in the values. To be honest, I think he wasn't believing also in the UX design and UX research and everything related to this, but his son was believing in this. So it was the only one point why we were able to work on this. And the thing that helped us, it was just the visualization, to be honest. Like, it was about like, see, you have everything, there's a gap, and right now, I think it was on the, I can go something? Nope. On the slide where there was a table, there was only about the needs. But what we did here, we also showed the problems to this customer, just to show him, like, you see, there are all the problems you were talking about. Like, your customers are not listening to you, that you have some problems with specific target groups, and you are thinking that maybe this target group, it's not for you. And we just explained them that it's not about the target group. It's not about like choosing the wrong users. It's all about that we have whole here. And we decided to show him that we can make a small steps. Like, you don't need to redesign everything. You don't need to make a really big effort in this case. You can add something small. In this case, it was all about the summaries after the conversation with the client in the email form, and something related to the education, like sending like 1 page of the information about the training the client will have. And it will resolve this in some specific, resolve some of the problems we have here, so everything will be better. And with this approach of small steps, they decide, okay, like, it won't cost us anything, we can try. And after the small step, when they saw the result, that everything is changing and more of the clients are deciding and there's lack of problems with the communication, they decide, okay, like, we can add more values, we can try to add more solution related to these values to fulfill this whole.
Okay, thank you.